Um, Obviously, we made just the one trade today with Danton Heinen for Nick Ritchie, and I want to thank Danton Heinen, a really good young player for us, and I wish him well in Anaheim. But it was an area that we felt we needed to address from some interior ice play, size and strength, net front play, contested puck battles, things that we feel that Nick will bring to the table for us. He's done it in Anaheim, and we think that he'll address some of those needs for us moving forward.
You say that you got both the deals that you did Friday and today. How big was that component for you for what you have on your plate this summer?
I mean, they're all variables. I don't think that's our intention. Is to just we're a cap team. We're likely to have overages this year based on being a cap team and the injuries that we had throughout the course of the season. So we're trying to address the needs of our hockey club first and foremost, and we tried to do that with these two acquisitions.
A few weeks ago, you said that you were good with the way this team was built moving forward. Now that you've made these deals, the remainder of the way and into the Stanley Cup playoffs, how do you feel about this team?
I mean, I've been proud of our group. Where they were in losing in a Game 7 last year and where they are today, I think they should be proud of themselves. But I do believe that this time of the year, if you have the opportunity to continue to look at areas that you can improve your hockey club and add depth to your hockey club, you have to do that. And as of today, we're a fairly healthy group, and hopefully it remains as such. And we've maintained our depth, and again, addressing some areas that we felt we needed to. Secondary scoring is always so important. It was so valuable to us in the playoffs last year, and we believe that Andre will provide some of that and the speed element to his game, and now Nick on the other side to be able to complement. Hopefully, if he goes in and plays with Charlie Coyle, those are two big guys that are hard to contain. Anders will flip over to the other side. Carson's a part of that, but we have other players, as I said before, that are playing very well in Providence that come up and provide depth. The last few years, injuries have played a factor in every team's playoff run, and they'll play a factor in ours. We have work to do to get there. We got a tough schedule coming up, but our guys, our team has put themselves in a position to hopefully take another run, but it's one step at a time.
What made you decide to not augment the back end from maybe like a size and strength perspective?
Well, Clifton was coming back from his conditioning stint. Kevin Miller continues to make progress. We don't have a return date there. Jeremy Lauzon has come in and played very well, provides a little bit of that. Johnny Moore's a valuable depth piece for us, can go in. You look at one of the recent games, goes in and plays 23 minutes, because we were shorthanded on that particular night. So I think our group overall has a good balance to it. And we have a couple guys also in Providence, and Camphor's guys played in Stanley Cup Finals last year. Vakanainen and Lisboro both played very well. I think we have to acknowledge you need 9 or 10 defensemen in the course of the year, and we got 19 games between now and then, and hopefully we don't lose any of them. But I think our group has some balance to it.
Johnny, when all was said, what made Nick the best fit?
Pardon me? Who?
When all was said, what made Nick the best fit to go with?
Well, a little bit is always supply and demand and who's available. We targeted, some certain players, and Nick being one of them. And obviously we found a trade partner and just happened to be with Anaheim again. Obviously for a period of time I had discussions with Bob and knew who would be available. So, but there were other players that we certainly had looked at and tried to find deals with, but this is the one that made the most sense to us.
Does what people expect to be the quality of this upcoming draft, are you surprised at how many first rounders moved?
Well, history says that when you make big swings at the deadline, whether or not they work. I think teams just want to try and get better. If they're in the moment and they feel like their team has a chance, then they're going to do what it takes. And not every year will be like that. This year it was. I guarantee, like I've said, you walk in there on Friday night, you don't have one, you're going to be, you're going to be pretty sour sitting there and explaining to your scouts, what just happened, unless you're sitting in the, one table to the right of us last year. And that's the ultimate goal. You want to be sitting in that back row right seat. And that's what we're trying to do.
Don, you've had 5 weeks or so to evaluate this team since you made that cluster of internal moves. Jeremy, Carson, Anton activated. I'm wondering what kind of effect you think having those players up and then the corresponding moves down has overall impacted.
You know, there has been a lot of attention put to internal competition, so to speak. I think the depth of our hockey club and the health of our hockey club, I do believe the break, you know, the guys to go step away from hockey mentally and physically, I do believe aided in some of the re-energizing the players. But we have players that, you know, Anton Bleed's a good example. You know, been waiting all year, and, you know, there's a lot of development time that's spent in getting Anton to this place, and now he's getting an opportunity. He's excited to play for us and do whatever it takes to try and stay in that lineup. And there's a lot involved with players in that next level of, you know, as I mentioned, several guys in Providence that are continuing to make that step. When they're ready, it depends when they go in and take advantage of the opportunities. I just think that our group feels like we have depth and next man up mentality, which we've taken that approach, and we're in a better position as a result of it. It's not about, you know, just internal competition to say, okay, who gets ice time and such. I do believe those are valuable parts of what you're trying to accomplish as a team, but it's about depth and about who can step in and play a role and at the right time.
Hand in hand with Joe's question about how you feel about your team today, how conscious are you or were you in these last 3 to 5 days of Bergeron is where he is, Krejci is in terms of age, Krejci is, Chara in terms of this is the moment, this is the time to get this done? Or is that just always in the back of your head?
You know, I've had conversations with every one of those players over the course of my time as general manager, and they just want to try and win. That's all they care about. They do care about who's in their room and who can help them win, and I'm very cognizant of that and disrupting that. You know, you take away a player, you know, Danton, who's come along with and grown with this group. You know, that's impactful. And but these guys are driven to try and win, and, you know, to give them as much as we possibly can. There's never one defined moment of just this is our moment. This is our window, so to speak. We're trying to look at last year, this year, next year, and they're a big part of it. They just want guys that are pulling in the same direction as them and as hard as they're willing to pull.
I'm curious, Don, what the dynamic is like when you go out during the offseason, you get a guy like Brett Ritchie for that size and that strength. It doesn't work out. You put him down in Providence, then you go out and you get his brother. Like, what's that dynamic like to fill that same role?
Well, I mean, they're opposite sides of the ice. Again, we're just trying to find a player that brings that. I mean, you know, Nick's had a little more accomplishments at the NHL level, and you know, we were hopeful that Brett would as well. You know, he had a pocket of it. You know, when he scored 16 goals, had pockets of it here that he was very effective, and other times that he wasn't as consistent as we would like him to have been. You know, even going down to Providence before he got hurt this past week, he was playing very well, getting opportunities to score. It hasn't been able to score with the same level of consistency, you know, in years past. Yeah, it's a factor. There's no question. I knew I'd get asked the question. You know, did I get it right? Get the right Ritchie this time? You know, we're hoping. You know, those aren't things that go by. I understand your question completely. We do believe he adds an element to our hockey club that we didn't have prior to today, and we're happy about it. You know, there's some big body hockey that's going to be played going forward, and I think that he's a part of that.
So Ritchie could be here tomorrow?
Yeah, he's flying to now. He's in the air now.
See, I think 3 extra forwards, 2 extra D today. I mean, is everybody active? Is that too many guys for you to have around, 5 extra skaters, or?
Nope. This time you're not governed by your roster, so it's, again, stay as healthy as possibly can and go to work each night. You know, we can be in a situation where we do have guys that are dinged up, that maybe you give them that extra day that they need to. You know, guys will have to work hard, you know, practice and getting reps. And our coaches do a great job. Kimmer does a good job of keeping guys, you know, in shape and you know, keeping their timing. You know, Clifton's a good example of that. He's not going to play tomorrow. He's only played a couple of games in a little while. So, you know, we may have to sprinkle some of those guys in and get appropriate ice time accordingly. But, you know, we got a lot of tough games coming up.
Expect either of the 2 new guys to be in tomorrow night, or?
Well, again, we'll wait until, Nick lands and see where he's at, but there's a good chance he's in the lineup. Andre, we may hold back for another day and give him another good set of practice time to fully acclimate, but he's healthy and ready to go. It's just, getting him fully up to speed.
Don, what's the best way, bottom line, to evaluate trades like this? I mean, is it purely on how much they help you this season get to your ultimate goal of winning the cup, or is there more nuance to that?
I mean, everybody just, whether or not you win is really the ultimate indicator of whether or not you did an adequate job. Giving yourself a chance to win, is part of that process, and addressing needs. How it works out, that's to be determined, right, in terms of how much success you have. Ultimately, that's what you're measured on, how much success you have in this business and in professional sports in general. So to be determined in that we do a lot of analysis, as to what other teams do in years past, what we've done in years past. You look at the value of non-expiring contracts versus the rental market, and some teams are more equipped to want to be out underneath the contract versus taking ones going forward. So there's nuances associated with it, and we'll do a deep dive on that. But ultimately, you're just trying to get the best players to give yourself a chance to win, and that'll be determined, in what success we have between now and the end of the year.
Were these two players in your talks Friday, or did you reset the pins on that and discuss them new today? You target one guy, you're in trouble. You're hopeful when you do target players that you're going to acquire, the very specific player that you would like to have, but you better have a bucket, of players. And that's really just a general statement, in terms of you get too target specific, too focused on one particular guy, and he goes, you get disappointed, you can't regroup to figure out where you're supposed to go next. But we landed, two players that we feel, addressed needs for us, and that's what's most important.
Even if you remain healthy, do you still see a scenario where maybe you bring up somebody from Providence and the player to kind of put them in the mix?
Yeah, 100%. We feel that some guys have earned that opportunity to be part of this mix, and what injection they can have and what impact they can have. I do believe we'll get some determination of that between now and the end of the year.
John, you see, leading into this, there's a lot of talk with Chris Kreider, sign, not sign. Obviously, a lot of teams looking at it. When a player signs like this on trade deadline day, how does that shake up the market?
I guess the timing depends. Obviously they took it right down to the wire. Important player for them. Had been rumored to be in the marketplace. You're trying to do your due diligence as a general manager, know who's available and whether or not they're going to become available. And maybe you get tipped off somewhere along the way that they might get a deal done. But that's between the player and agent and that team itself.
Was there anything that stood out to you surprising about this deadline in terms of magnitude of deals or speed?
I mean, the NHL has gotten to a point where there's very few deals happen other than, in and around the draft or free agency and then, the trade deadline. So I think you have to expect anything, when you get into this time period. Whether or not they happen, I don't know. But, there were some big transactions that took place today. So I don't know whether that's going to change going forward. I can only tell you what's happened in the last few years. It just hasn't been, a lot of hockey trades. You have competitive balance throughout the league and bunching up. You've got a few teams that may be out by this time of the year that they're clear sellers, and a lot of people that are either holding their assets tight to their vest and planning going forward, or no, they're fully in the marketplace. So supply and demand dictates it, but that's where things have trended, is to, having things transpire more around, a time frame of the trade deadline.
Having used that first-round pick for the Kasha deal, did that make it more challenging to potentially do a quote-unquote big transaction today?
Possibly. You saw other first-round picks traded. Whether or not you trade 2 consecutive years, obviously we've got several young players as well that you could probably utilize in that sense. Sometimes that have more value. We're just trying to balance winning right now and doing the best we can for our hockey club, and keeping, obviously an eye on the future and not jeopardizing that or compromising that But you know you're going to at this time of the year. You just know it. You're dipping into that bucket that you just don't want to. It's just whether or not you're in there with two hands or one.
Are you negotiating with Tory and his camp now continuously, or is that kind of on hold until post?
I don't have an update in terms of a timeline. We've continued to stay in communication with Tory. Whether or not we find one at an appropriate time between now and the end of the year, I don't know yet. We'll have, talks. They've been very cordial. I think both sides sort of understand where they are, and whether or not we can bridge, something along those lines to be determined, to be honest with you.
How did Danton take the,
Yeah, I've got a long history with Danton, and those are really difficult conversations. You just had his mom in town. You develop a relationship with the family, as well as Danton and the impact he has in our hockey club. He's visibly upset. He knows there's a great opportunity for him that lies ahead in Anaheim, and that's what I only wished him the best in that sense. That his production's been down a little bit. He's been hard on himself, but just a tremendous person and a really, really good hockey player. So, I hope he goes and flourishes there. Whether that's a reflection I made a bad trade, I don't care, because I only wish the best for him.
does Miller have to stay on IR and all that for the rest of the year?
Again, he's on a progression that we're going to not deviate from, and where Kevin continues to make strides, we'll have to evaluate week to week. And as far as staying on IR, he doesn't need to stay on IR, but that's where he will remain until he's ready to play.
So cap-wise, or
No, there's no cap issues. That was part of the exercise here to make sure that you're not technically coming out of LTI, but when you do want to bring your player off of long-term injury, that you have the flexibility to do that. We wanted to make sure that we were cognizant of that and having the ability. And there are some roster moves associated. If we didn't do these deals, that it would have been tight. We were still able to do it at any point in time without doing any deals. But we were aware of it and making sure that, we want to try to give that some runway to be able to happen.
At the risk of being too specific with the Providence guys, I think they're still considered a center, or are you open to him playing the wing? Or?
Yeah, I think Jack would tell you he's open to playing the wing, so we would have to be. There's some nuances associated with that he might not fully know right now. He's more than capable of playing both positions. We just think he's, a hell of a prospect at this point in time with a great future as a Boston Bruin. And, when and if he gets up here now or next year or when that is, I think he's going to be a good hockey player for us.
Did you get down the path on a team where you thought something was going to materialize and fell through late? Was there a scenario where that took place?
Again, you never know. I mean, I think what I've really learned through my years in the management side of it is you're probably running simultaneous tracks. And I think you have to expect everybody else to be. As I said, you get too one-dimensionally target focused and, you probably get surprised. Doesn't mean anybody's trying to pull an end around on you. It's just part of the business. Somebody's trying to find a different deal or somebody's tracking down the same player you are. I don't think we were overly surprised or somebody pivoted on us or any of those things. We just focused on what we were trying to accomplish and try to get that done.